Welcome, everyone. Thank you for attending. I'm so pleased to have you here. This is our August C4K community webinar, and we will get started in just a moment. I just have a couple of announcements that I wanted to make first. Contracting season is alive and well at C4K. So most of our staff is actually out traveling today, but we hope to be, sorry, they're in a training today actually, but we hope to be able to start sending the first few contracts later this week and then into next week and beyond if it takes you a little longer to get your due diligence, but we'll get to everybody. So we thank you for working so hard to make sure we get all that documentation in that Nebraska Children needs in order to execute contracts. I also wanted to remind everyone, if you haven't yet, please register for the Thriving Children, Families, and Communities Conference, as well as the C4K dinner and the C4K convening day. So I'm going to put that link in the chat. And then my only other announcement is that for our next C4K community webinar, that will be held on Wednesday, October 1st at this same time. The topic will be marketing the non-refundable tax credit to businesses in your area. So that will be a really good one too. Registration is required to attend. I'll drop that link in the chat a few times throughout this meeting just so everyone gets a chance to see it. But that is really it for me. Okay, so we are privileged to have Jonathan Jank with us from Seward County. He has an exciting presentation for everyone. So I will just pass the mic over to him.
Thanks, Noelle, and hello, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to present to you all today about Subpool Network that we've been diligently working on over the last about 6 months plus. So just to orient you a little bit about where I'm coming at in this conversation. So I serve as the president and CEO for the Seward County Chamber and Development Partnership. We've been a C4K community and county for just over 3 years now. Really honored to be a part of this network. Thanks to Noelle and Chandra for their good work and that whole team. We're really tremendously grateful for those resources and the connections that they've helped provide over that time. As I say, from someone that's been in chamber economic development work for 13 and a half years, I didn't speak childcare when I started in the C4K world. But I feel like I can maybe hack it a little bit. Of course, I always say, really, we try to lift up the good work of our local child care service providers because they're the real heroes doing the day-to-day work, helping care for children and families, and really raising the next generation. And specifically for us in the Chamber of Commerce economic development world, that's our next generation of workforce. And so really for us, that's why our board has written childcare into our strategic plan, why it matters to us, and really why we've pursued this topic with the Subpool Network pretty sizably with our effort. So I'm also going to share that in the C4K, our local team, and again, engaging with our local childcare service providers, the Subpool Network came up as we updated our strategic plan for C4K. The Subpool Network was one of our top 3 issues that were identified. So we typically don't do work in our office unless it's identified as a priority, and this was one of those priorities. And what we heard from local childcare service providers is that we need to take a day off. We need some margin in our world, and we not only to maybe go to an appointment or go to a kids or a grandkids game, but also to maybe go on vacation once in a while. And as we look at this from a broader workforce standpoint, to have a sub creates sustainability within the local childcare workforce, and we want people to see childcare as a destination career, and that it's something that they can grow into over time. And from our standpoint, this is a key piece of that puzzle in standing up the Subpool Network. So for those that aren't familiar with what really that is, I'm gonna walk through it, and then we're gonna go through quite a bit of detail about this topic. about how we're intending to try to run it to create what will be the state's first statewide subpool network. But we, through, I'll say, LB 874, so this was a couple of legislative cycles ago, through the Nebraska legislature, they passed a bill that allowed for the portability of background checks. And that has given us the legal ability now to create a subpool. And we didn't have that ability before then. And grateful to First Five Nebraska, Nebraska Children and Families, and others that have helped be good advocates for that work. And specifically that bill that was a critical piece of this puzzle. And so now we're trying to figure out how to put that into action. As we've gone sort of down the rabbit trail, we realized that this isn't something that you can just start up quickly, because there's a lot of moving parts. And I think as I walk through the budget, you'll be able to see that in pretty considerable detail. We've been fortunate to establish a relationship with a foundation that has asked us to find 10 total communities that would help stand this up before they would help provide funding to help support this. And you'll see that within the budget that I'll walk through. And so that's given us a target to shoot for. We're fortunate in that we have 3 communities that are committed, including ourselves here in Seward County. I want to give a shout out to North Platte. I see Val on the call, so thanks, Val. And I'll kind of ask her to unmute at some point here to share the reason that North Platte is joining us on this journey. And then also my colleagues Lisa and Emily in York County, and their York County Kids program is helping join us as well, which we're really excited about to have our neighbors in York joining us. With that said, it will be a first come, first serve as we stand this up, trying to get to those first 10 communities. And really the ask that we're making is we're asking for a $20,000 commitment over a 3-year basis to help create a 3-year runway for this startup of the statewide subpool network. And then at the end of 3 years, we have a commitment from our local district senator, Jana Hughes, that she has interest to carry a bill that would create more of a sustainable state appropriation for this network. And as we've looked at other states that are doing this work all over the country, all of them have state funding, which has created that sustainability. But we have to prove the model. We have to walk before we can run. And so that's a key piece that we're trying to get things started so we can prove to not just Senator Hughes, but senators across the state to say this is something that works. Here's the metrics of success that we can show you of what we've been able to accomplish over a 3-year period. And then we need your support ultimately on the state side. Where that funding comes from, I'm not going to stand here today and say we know exactly where that comes from. But we're not going to worry about that. We need to execute on what's in front of us first. But that's where we're heading over a 3-year period to create sustainability within this network. I will also welcome anyone to stop me at any time. So if you have questions, unmute. Feel free to say, Jonathan, stop. Here's a question. I may not see the chat box right away, so just feel free to shout it out as you have interest there. So I'm going to start by sharing my screen, and hopefully everyone can see this. Can everyone see the Excel spreadsheet here?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. Everybody's excited to see an Excel spreadsheet today, right? It's adulting at its finest. So I'm actually going to start on you can see sort of the revenue and expense. I'm going to start on the expense side, just so you understand the context of what it takes to build one of these up. And specifically, we've been tremendously fortunate to have some really great partners that have agreed to join us in this, and I'll kind of walk through. So it's not just Jonathan and the team here in Seward County that are running this thing. We have a lot of wonderful experts in the room, and the C4K group has been tremendously supportive, First Five Nebraska and others, and we're grateful for their partnership on this. So the first expense that you see is a project coordinator. And what I have been told for states that are doing this sustainably, there is a designated person that helps stand these up within individual communities, and they're the go-to person that connects providers and subs using a technological tool, and specifically an app, which I'll get into here in a minute. I like to joke that it's sort of it's a dating app. It connects licensed providers with subs, and ultimately makes those connections through technology. But we're confident that we need that person, as we've researched this sizably and how other states are doing this. To have a designated person is really, really key. We have reached out to Tracy Gordon and the team at NEAEYC. Hopefully, I got the acronym alphabet soup there correct. And so grateful for Tracy and her willingness to partner on this. I think ultimately she'll likely be hiring a staff member to help fill this coordinator role. But if you know anything about their work, they are well positioned to be that main coordinator to connect our initial 10 communities and counties into the sub pool. So we're excited about that. You can also see here in sort of the notes, our hope is actually we have a local childcare service provider who has experience in the network. Our thought was, if we're going to be one of the first ones to stand up, we sort of have to prove the model here in Seward and Seward County as well. And so they may be a part of that as well, and kind of initially getting our local providers connected, because we're trying to create a system for how we have those conversations with local providers, whether it's in Seward County, North Platte, York County, or anywhere else around the state, to ensure that they understand how this works, how they would integrate into the technology, how we would ultimately recruit subs to fill sub opportunities, and beyond that. I'll go down to the next line, which is our contractor. We were introduced to, her name is Grace Reef. She stood up multiple sub pools across the country, that we're aware of. Virginia, New Jersey, working with Maryland and other states. She really has a strong policy background. We were introduced to her from First Five Nebraska. Grateful for that connection. Grace has been excellent. She's helped us put together these materials. And by the way, this Excel spreadsheet and a couple of other documents, Noelle has graciously agreed to send them out after this recording. And so y'all get these in digital form here after the webinar. But she has experience standing these up, and she is the one that recommended, you really need a coordinator, you need a go-to person. I think I've heard before is, why can't we just do this through texting people and do this on like a Google Doc? And I say, if that's what you want to do and you want to be that person, you are welcome to do that. No one is stopping you from doing that locally. And so to say, is this a solution for everyone? Absolutely not. What I can tell you is, I do not personally have capacity to be the go-to person for Seward County to help connect subs and licensed providers potentially every single day when they need a sub. If you go down that thought trail, that rabbit trail, it's pretty overwhelming if you think about that. What I know from connecting with Seward Public Schools is they have a guy for that. His name is Nate, and he's wonderful. But he is designated throughout the entire school year to connect with subs who are in their system, that have all their background checks and licensure and all those things, that when a first grade teacher is sick because they can't be in their class, there's something that goes out. Nate does a magical thing and ensures that we have a sub in the classroom. So all those first graders are not just, they don't have to be sent home, which is honestly what happens in a lot of our places now, especially for our in-home providers, where it's a one-person shop and they may be sick and they say, I'm sorry, but I can't care for your kiddos today. And 10 to 12 families are scrambling. And so we're trying to avoid that through creating a system through the sub-pool network. And so through the coordinator, that's sort of our Nate, as we're thinking about for the whole state, that would help provide that. Again, connecting subs to ensure that they have all their background check, fingerprints, licensure, put them in the technology into the system, to the app, And then ultimately those licensed providers have all their paperwork together in place, which would include, sort of like a standardized handbook, all those things that are necessary to ensure that they're in compliance and ultimately can accept and successfully place a sub and be able to pay that sub and all those things. That coordinator helps make that happen. And fortunately, Grace has walked us through all of those steps. What she has also graciously agreed is to be our contractor for basically through the life of this 3-year startup of the sub pool network. And we assume, you can see here in the budget, year one is a little heavier on her time. And the thought is like she's actually coming with us, with the coordinator from NEAEYC to come to each one of those 10 communities and counties that will be starting up to ensure that we're having that similar experience, the same conversations with local providers, childcare service providers, and connecting with subs. And so we're starting on the right foot. Then that kind of third piece of the puzzle here is the technology piece. Grace, in her research, shared that she's interviewed 10 different app companies. If you can believe that, there are 10 app companies. There's probably more, but at least 10 that do this work. Her recommendation was connecting with a group called One Core Super Sub, and they are based out of Cupertino, California. We've done a couple of demos with them, and I would say their app is more than we need, but I'm confident that what they have will provide exactly at least the initial framework for connecting providers and subs in an efficient way. There's costs involved with that. There's sort of initial setup fees, and then there's implementation fees. Those are one-time investments. And then there's the annual subscription, as you can imagine, with an app. And so there's costs with that. But again, to get that, as I joke again, the dating service to connect providers and subs, there's a technology piece that ensures that there's compliance with the laws for licensure, fingerprinting, background checks, all those things, and then making sure we have those handbooks, making sure subs are getting paid. All of that goes into the app to have confidence that we're doing things correctly and above board. And as DHHS would ask for things, here it is. It's in the app. We don't need to worry about that. So then, as Grace encouraged us, every community you're going to find subs in different places. Sometimes you may need an incentive. And so that's built in here to try to encourage subs to join the network. And when we say join the network, they're actually signing up. They're signing an agreement to be a part of the network for a period of time. And I'll get to where some of the income may come if someone wants to buy them out of that contract or that agreement, because maybe they're an excellent sub and someone wants to hire them. Well, that's great. But they signed up to be a sub with us in the pool for a period of time. And so in a sense, if they're wanting to leave and go to full-time or part-time employment with one of the providers, wonderful. But we want to make sure that we're not necessarily getting subs poached all the time, because then you don't have a sub pool network. So that's a really interesting balance that we have to consider. But in some sense, we're maybe needing to incentivize them, as Grace encouraged us to consider that, so you can see some costs involved. Right now, we're not getting charged for background checks. We're very fortunate in the state we aren't. That could change, but at this point, we don't have costs for that. We're acknowledging that there may need to be some sub-training, and so we built in a small amount for that. Through the coordinator, through Tracy Gordon's team, we will need to ensure that every sub has the proper training to actually be in the classroom. And that's a requirement. And so the good news is we have a little bit built in here to ensure that they have that. Fortunately, there's a lot of wonderful free trainings that we can connect them with as well. But again, making them aware of how they can be up to date, even just from a best practice standpoint, because you want the best, the best adults, the best trained, licensed adults caring for kiddos. We're going to have to do some marketing, and I will say marketing across all forms of media. Grace is going to help with some of those materials and to help spread that word, to ensure that we're getting the word out there to fill the sub pool with quality subs, and then to help local license providers know that this is an option for them. Hopefully, many of you in the C4K network have built a lot of good relationships with your local providers. And so hopefully this is just an extension of the good work you're already doing to say, hey, this is actually a cool service that we can provide for you and help bring them to the table. But we may have to push it out from a paid marketing standpoint. Grace would likely have to travel. She lives on the East Coast. And so we would assume that she's going to be here, especially as we would get all 10 communities signed up. She's probably just going to do a whirlwind tour of Nebraska for about a week. And so to get out here and to be here for a number of days, we would assume we're going to be paying for some of her travel. And then lastly, grant administration. Our organization is willing to take that on. There's stewardship, not just with the foundation, as I alluded to. Anytime that there's sort of managing grant funds, you have to do that. But also just ensuring that we're sort of being that go-between. We're living the C4K network every day as a local organization, and so we want to make sure that we're seen as a peer in this work, and that we're able to help support you as we're standing up something that's never been done in the state of Nebraska before. And then on the income side, so we have annual fees that would be charged for programs to participate. You can see in year one, we're sort of incentivizing them by saying there will be no costs for year one, but in year 2 and 3, there will be a cost to participate. Sub-placement fees, and you can see there's pretty significant detail in the notes. I'd encourage you to look into this in more detail after Noel sends this out. But you can see off to the right here, there's sub-placement fee schedule. Again, Grace has said this is how it works in other states, but you can actually sort of buy, we'll call them tokens. I think that's what she calls them, that would equal like 1 token is 1 placement, for example. And that you could get up to buy a package per se. You could buy 1 at a time, or you could buy 10 to sort of save a little money, or 25, or potentially get an unlimited. This is just sort of ballparking what we think that could be, because ultimately we need some revenue generator within this model to create sustainability. It can't just be sort of it can't just be philanthropy foundation funded. It can't just be state funded. There has to be some sustainability here. And we're providing a service at the end of the day to help support childcare service providers. You can think of this almost like if you have an employment service where you're hiring someone as a contractor to come in, there's a cost involved with that. And so this would be sort of similar to that. I alluded to this already, the sub buyout. So if you find a really excellent sub that has signed to be a part of the network for, let's say, 6 months or a year, and you're saying, "Gosh, I need that person in my classroom every day," that's great. But to buy them out of that agreement, there's a cost. We don't necessarily anticipate that in year 1 and 2, but there could be in year 3. Grace said we're going to have to determine what's that magic number that would sort of disincentivize people from wanting to do a buyout. But the reality is if they like someone enough and want them to work for them full or part-time outside of the network, there needs to be a significant enough amount to make sure that people aren't getting poached on a regular basis. We then have where you all may come in, where Seward County, we're contributing the 20,000 into this as well over a 3-year period. North Platte, York County as well, and that's split up over a 3-year period. So $6,666.70 or $6,666.07, close enough. Happens each year, and then again that's times 10. And so those 10 communities, 10 counties are contributing to this. And, beyond these 3 years, what does that look and feel like once we would have a state appropriation? I'm not quite sure. My hope is that there is some sustainability in that state appropriation, where we're not having to ask communities to contribute more. And then actually that there's sustainability within the program fees, sub-placement fees, buyout fees. There's some continuity there to help create the sustainable model over time. And so this is us. This is us coming to the table, contributing to this, to be a part of that startup, to be on the cutting edge of the sub pool network. And then the last piece of the income side of the budget is our foundation that has said, we need you to bring 10 communities to the table that are contributing in a meaningful way. They said, really, you need to raise about 2/3 of your funds initially before we would potentially come in on the backside. And so you can see between these initial kind of 4 categories that's what we're doing. And then the foundation would come in to finish off that last third. With that, I'm going to stop and ask Val if she wouldn't mind unmuting and just sharing sort of the North Platte story and specifically why they're interested in joining us as a part of this.
Yeah, so we were, I think, just really excited that s- Jonathan and his crew really were forging the effort with all of this. This was something we had been talking about for a few years as a need in Lincoln County. Um, and so to have them really pushing the ball forward, we're really grateful for that. So we definitely wanted to jump on and be supportive of all they're doing. The other things, as he mentioned, are just that to help with retention and burnout. Those are 2 huge things we see in our area. So we hope that to have a substitute pool, so you know, these early child care professionals feel like professionals and can take days off, and they don't feel guilty for doing so. So we're really excited about it. I think the biggest push was in the beginning, we thought we had to have all the money up front. So when they broke that down, it was sort of a no-brainer for us. We were fortunate to have um, some grant money that was still left that had to be expended by the end of August, and they allowed us to use that. And so then we'll find ways or fundraise for each year, but I don't feel like that's a tough number to come up with, honestly, for all you're getting, for the app, for a coordinator, the marketing. Um, I really think it's a great deal and I'm so excited. I'm sure there'll be kinks and, with I'm sure every town will be different with the poaching or how things like that go, or if it will even be an issue. But we're excited about it. So yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Val.
Mm.
With that, as I sort of close up my initial presentation portion of this, I'll just say really we're looking for 7 more communities or counties to join us as a part of the subpool network to get it started. Again, it's a commitment of 20,000 over a 3-year period, as Val was alluding to. That's broken down. We're not expecting people to contribute until we officially kick it off. But that's what we need. We need to show that level of commitment for the foundation to come in and to be that last third of the funding puzzle. And then again, our long-term sustainable plan at the end of year 3, looking to work with Senator Hughes and others. And we're actually hoping to have a good geographic diversity if we can around the state. So we have other senators across the state that are seeing positive momentum around the subpool network in their areas. And so we may have some co-sponsors as a part of that bill that could create more sustainability for the subpool moving forward. But with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. And I'll also offer, before I forget, I'm happy to come to your place and space to present, whether that's through a Zoom or a Teams call, or, if it's within reasonable driving distance, I'm happy to come in person. Noel will be sending out, again, the budget that I just walked through. And then there's 2 other documents that you'll get. One is the actual agreement that we sign. It's a pretty simple agreement that walks through kind of what expectations are from your local community. Obviously, breaks out the funding as a part of that. That's what we would need, sort of a signed agreement there to show commitment towards the sub pool. And again, we'll do that on a first come first serve basis. Our goal is to try to launch this thing early next year, and so we're having a hard push to try to find other partners to join us in that. And then the third document that I have is just a brief 1-page overview of what is a subpool network. So for those that have no sort of background in this place and space, especially as you would think about engaging funders to help potentially fundraise the 20,000. It's a good one pager that you could pass on to them so they can better understand it and synthesize the information in a pretty quick fashion. With that, I will shut up, and if people have questions, I'm happy to answer them to the best of my ability.
Well, Jonathan, I think you kind of talked about it, but I was just curious, like, you did have a timeline. Like, what is that timeline? And like, what does that look like if you don't get all 10 of them?
Yeah, so from a practical standpoint, if we cannot get to all 10, that is what the foundation has asked us to get to. And so we're pushing towards that. That's our target. If we don't get to that, let's say we get to 8 or 9, I'm going to continue to steward the relationship with the foundation and say, hey, we're here. If it's the end of the year, it's December, we'd really like to kick this thing off. Is there a potential that they would step in? We'll have to see. I think for us, we have to show a good faith effort that we're moving towards that. I think we have some good initial momentum, and so the hope is that we can continually grow it from here. But for us, we want to get this thing started, and I know our local providers are excited for it. As Val shared, they're excited for it in North Platte, Lincoln County. And Lisa and Emily and the rest of the crew in York County are excited as well. We think this will really be an important piece for us as local communities, but then ultimately sort of that long-term vision of how do we create this for the state.
I was just curious, some of you that are on the call, are some of you on the fence or just interested at all? I was just trying to get a vibe from any communities out there that want to speak up and just share anything or any thoughts, or that it's just totally not a need for your community.
I do have a couple questions. I was just, so how long, like, can it be like a long-term sub? Like, say you've got somebody going on maternity leave and I need to fill this spot for a or is that going to be considered poaching? And then, so you pay to join this and then you pay the sub, like the center that they sub in, you pay them directly, correct?
Correct, and that's actually facilitated through the app. They have a payment system, and actually they have a new feature that they're standing up where you can actually do same day pay. So there's sort of an incentive to help sub that day. They're getting paid immediately afterwards. Personally, if I was sort of in that sub place in life, like that sounds pretty sweet. So I think that's pretty cool. To your earlier point, does it work for long-term subs? I would think so, as long as you're willing to pay that sort of placement fee. Or in that standpoint, let's say it was going to be for 6 weeks or 3 months or whatever the maternity leave may be, then you could maybe buy that many placements per se. I don't know why you couldn't do that. As long as you're playing within the rules that have been set, I don't think there's an issue there.
And then is there a set wage, like every sub, like that you have to pay, or is it you pay like your hourly wage? Say like my center pays $14 an hour, but the center in York pays $18 an hour. So obviously nobody's going to jump on subbing, come into Giltner versus going to York if they live in Aurora.
Yeah, great point. And I'll say that there will have to be the initial conversations within the local community or county to set those rates. Because you're right, even just within the community, if you have one center or in-home two that says, hey, I'll pay 50 cents more an hour, right? Like where are subs going to go if there's a choice? So it's basically everybody sitting together in a room and figuring out how they sing Kumbaya and say, yep, this is the sub rate in our town. So that's where that storming and norming of the small group has to happen at the beginning, where we're agreeing to pay rates, we're agreeing to policies, expectations of subs, sort of the handbook, we'll call it. And so again, the sub, when they're signing up for the sub pool, they're agreeing to this rate, they're agreeing to these policies, they're agreeing to these procedures essentially, or the handbook or expectations. Yep, you show up, an hour before, so we're going to give you a tour of the house or the childcare center. You're going to learn where the fire exits are at, where we do lunch, yada, 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 right? There's sort of a standard practice that happens no matter which one you're in. And if we can set those expectations, that's where the sustainability comes. And so that initial conversation is going to be key to say that, nope, people can't have a different sub rate. If you're working within this network, this is the pay rate for this. Now, your question on if there's proximity, right? Subs themselves can set the radius that they're willing to travel to go sub for a provider. So hypothetically, let's say someone lives in Waco or Utica, which is like right on the border of Seward and York County. They could say, I'm willing to travel 30 miles in either way. Well, then, yeah, that may be a little bit different in maybe what York County is setting for their rates and Seward County is setting for their rates. I would say from a practical standpoint, I don't think there's going to be, at least within proximity, a huge pay rate difference between a York and a Seward County. In other parts of greater Nebraska, are there different pay rates? That's up to them. That's something we'll have to work through, but ultimately the local group has to make that decision. Great question.
Thank you. Thank you. I know that I, as a center, would be 100% ready to jump on board on this, but unfortunately, we are right in the middle of an expansion, and so all of our funding is tied into that. I just can't afford 20,000 over the next 3 years as a center. I mean, and that's just. And I'm sorry, I have to mute you because my kids are back from the park and starving for lunch.
That's okay. Well, Mandy, thanks for being a part of this, and I would encourage you and others, right? If you as maybe a one provider, if you have other centers or in-homes, this is a community or a countywide effort. I'm not necessarily expecting that it's one provider having to come up with this, and that's where we're really going to have to be creative. Val gave a great example to say, hey, we had some grant funds, perfect fit for us. I think York County is actually having some fundraising conversations with their business community. We have some grant funds as well in Seward County that we're able to utilize. I don't think there's a right or wrong way on how you come up with those funds. But I would encourage you to reach out to your neighbors and your colleagues in the place and space that are also doing this work and say, hey, how can we work together? How can we engage the business or the philanthropic community locally to step up and to help support this? Because this matters to us. This will make a positive difference in our quality of life and ability to work sustainably. And also to say, how do we prioritize this to make sure that we're creating an environment that people want to stay in for a career? I genuinely think this is a key piece of that puzzle. When we think about the sustainability of childcare, this is, I think, a basic expectation that we should have, that people can take a day off, they can go on vacation confidently, because we have a quality sub-pool network behind them. And so I just encourage others. I'm happy to be a sounding board. I've found Chandra and Noel to be awesome and their team to be awesome, and that they're willing to be creative and help you think about this stuff as well. But ultimately, we need some funds to help stand this thing up sustainably. And so that's what we're asking for.
When are you expecting or thinking that you would expect the first year's payment?
Yeah, so I think we would not expect it until agreements are signed and all 10 communities are on board. So this is not like if you sent me a signed contract today, I'm not expecting a check in the mail unless you have something like Val, that it's like we have a grant fund that we have to fulfill within a certain time frame. Like, I'm holding the funds. I'm not spending Val's money, I promise you. So it's like basically sitting in an account. And if for whatever reason this didn't move forward, I'm making every effort possible to move this thing forward. I would have to send the funds back. But ultimately, like when we launch this thing, and you would have ample warning, but the sense is if you're signing that agreement that you're making efforts to figure out how to come with that initial payment for year one, within a fairly efficient time frame. I'd like to really launch first quarter of this next year to get this thing up and going.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Yes.
Other questions for Jonathan? Think of any, Jonathan is here for you. And anybody watching the recording, that goes for you as well. We will, thank you so much for coming, everyone. We will, and Jonathan, that was excellent. I wish you all the luck in the world with this project, and Val, thank you for sharing. But yeah, we will get the recording out because there are a lot of people I know that are in training today and couldn't be here, but are really eager to watch this. And all of the materials will be sent as well from the assigned technical assistant from C4K. So you will all get it very soon. Thank you so much, everybody, for attending today. And thank you for watching the recording if you're here for that.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks. And I just put my email in the chat box.
Oh, great. Perfect. I will send that out too.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.